Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda. Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavinda. Reading from the Sri Caitanya Caritamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 10, and I believe it's, I can't see the board, but I believe it's 158. I was told 158, is that correct? 159? What was that? I can do both. Yeah, okay. 50. Okay, I'll do 158, 159 because I sort of prepared for 158. So, I'll just read this one and then we'll read the next one together. Tanrastane Rupa Gosani Sunena Bhagavat Prabhu Kripara Tenha Krishna Prememat. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. While he stayed with Srila Rupa Goswami, his engagement was to recite Srimad Bhagavatam for him to hear. As a result of this Bhagavatam recitation, he attained perfectional love of Krishna, by which he remained always maddened. Purport: Raghunath Bhattacharya or Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, one of the 6 Goswamis, was the son of Tapada Mishra. Born in approximately 1425 Shakabda, he was expert in reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, and in the Ancha Lila chapter 30 it is stated that he was also expert in cooking. Whatever he cooked would be nectarian. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu was greatly pleased to accept the foodstuffs that he cooked, and Raghunath Bhatta used to take the remnants of foodstuffs left by Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Raghunath Bhattacharya lived for 8 months in Jagannath Puri, after which Lord Chaitanya ordered him to go to Vrindavan and to join Sri Rupa Goswami. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu asked Raghunath Bhattacharya not to marry but to remain a brahmachari, and he also ordered him to read Srimad Bhagavatam constantly. Thus he went to Vrindavan, where he engaged in reciting Srimad Bhagavatam to Srila Rupa Goswami. He was so expert in reciting Srimad Bhagavatam that he would recite each and every verse in 3 melodious tunes. While Raghunath Bhatta Goswami was living with Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord blessed him by offering him betel nuts offered to the Jagannath deity and a garland of tulasi said to be as long as 14 cubits. The Govinda temple was constructed by Raghunath Bhatta Goswami's order to one of his disciples. Raghunath Bhatta Goswami supplied all the ornaments of the Govinda deity. He never talked of nonsense or worldly matters, but always engaged in hearing about Krishna 24 hours a day. He never cared to hear blasphemy of a Vaishnava, even when there were points to be criticized. He used to say that since all the Vaishnavas were engaged in the service of the Lord, he did not mind their faults. Later, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami lived in Radhakund in a small cottage. In the Gaura Ganadeshtapika, verse 185, it is said that Raghunath Bhatta Goswami was formerly the gopi named Raghumanjari. Text 159. Ematta Sankhya Tita Chaitanya Bhaktagana Dinimatra Liki Samyak Nayaya Katana Ematta Sankhya Tita Chaitanya Bhaktagana Dinmatra Liki Samyak Nayaya Katana Mata Sankyatita Caitanya Bhaktagana Din Matra Liki Samyak Nayaya Katana Any other men? Ladies? Okay, so read word for word. Emata, in this way. Sankhya Atita, innumerable. Caitanya Bhaktagana, devotees of Lord Caitanya. Dinmatra, only a fractional part. Liki, I write. Samyak, full. Na, cannot. Yaya, be possible. Katana, to explain. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. I list in this way only a portion of the innumerable devotees of Lord Caitanya. To describe them all fully is not possible. So we can read the next verse, text 160. Ekaika sakkate lagi kota koti gala dala tara shishya upashishya tara upadala. From each branch of the tree have grown hundreds and thousands of sub-branches of disciples and grand disciples. It was the desire of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu that his cult be spread all over the world. Therefore, there is a great necessity for many, many disciples of the branches of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu's disciplic succession. His cult should be spread not only in a few villages or in Bengal or in India, but all over the world. It is very much regrettable that complacent so-called devotees criticize the members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness for accepting sannyas and spreading the cult of Lord Caitanya all over the world. It is not our business to criticize anyone, but because they try to find fault with this movement, the real truth must be stated. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu wanted devotees all over the world, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also confirmed this. It is in pursuit of their will that the ISKCON movement is spreading all over the world. Genuine devotees of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu must take pride in the spread of Krishna consciousness movement instead of viciously criticizing its propaganda work. So we've just been reading the pastimes of Srila Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. So he was one of the 6 Goswamis. For those of you who have not been to all the classes, there's been a wonderful description of his character and pastimes here. So the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan were the chief disciples of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and they carried on his legacy of spreading Krishna consciousness by prolifically writing many wonderful books, which we have translated into English, many of them these days, and also in opening many temples. So they opened many glorious, wonderful temples. All the main deities in Vrindavan were opened by the 6 Goswamis. The temples were built by their disciples, wealthy disciples. And many of them wrote prolifically books, like Rupa Goswami wrote Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction. Sanatana Goswami, his most famous book, Caitanya, and many other books. But actually Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, he never wrote any literature, but he was very famous for his singing, his cooking, and his recitation of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So he was born roughly 1505 in East Bengal, which is now Bangladesh. And when he was a young boy, his father moved the family to Benares. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his travelling and preaching, he eventually came to Benares, and at the time Raghunath Bhatta was only about 9 years old. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to Benares specifically. The main purposes were to get to see some of his very famous devotees, Chandrasekhar Acharya and Tapada Mishra. Tapada Mishra was Raghunath Bhatta Goswami's father. And also Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to defeat the Mayavadis, because Benares then and even till today is known as the seat in India of the Mayavadis, where they prolifically spread their Mayavad philosophy. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to defeat the Mayavadis and their philosophy. So when he came to Benares, because he was taking his luncheon every day in the house of Raghunath Bhatta Goswami's father, Tapada Mishra, and Chandrasekhar Acharya, then the young boy, he was only 9 years old, he had a very strong desire to serve the Lord. So he humbly requested the Lord, can I render some humble service? So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, yes, you can render some menial service, you can massage my legs, help serve prasadam. And he used to take the remnants of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's prasadam, whatever was left on his plate. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was only there for a couple of months, and then he left, and Raghunath Bhatta Goswami was very deeply lamenting the loss of the physical association of the Lord. So within his heart, he was, crying out, calling out to the Lord. He wanted to, one day when he grew up, he wanted to go and spend time with Lord Chaitanya in Puri. So when he came of age, when he was 20 years old, he was able to go to Jagannath Puri and spend time with Lord Chaitanya. And on the way, he met one famous devotee called Ramdas, who was also on his way to Jagannath Puri. Ramdas was a great devotee of Lord Ramachandra. He used to constantly chant Ram, 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 like this. And he was also detaching himself from his family life and from worldly attachments, and setting out on his trip to Jagannath Puri to perfect his life, engage in the service of Lord Ram. And so they met each other, and Ramdas, understanding the exalted position of Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, even though Ramdas was much older, he wanted to render menial service. So he was doing whatever menial service, massaging Raghunath Bhatta Goswami's lotus feet and doing other menial service. But after some time, Raghunath Bhatta said, no, why are you serving me in such a way? I'm very fallen. And Ramdas's reply was that that I'm from a Sudra background. I'm very fallen, and I need this opportunity to render service to exalted personalities. So in this way, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami let him continue his humble service, and they went to Jagannath Puri, and there the Goswami, he quickly met Caitanya Mahaprabhu, who invited him to come for lunch every day, and also to cook preparations for the Lord, and to sing beautiful bhajans and recite the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it was said that about his cooking, he became very expert as a chef by being trained out by Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and his cooking was like the nectar of the gods. And so in this way he was in the association, rendering humble service, taking the Lord's remnants, reciting the Bhagavatam, Kirtan, cooking for the Lord for 8 months. And then the Lord said, now you should go back to Benares and serve your parents, chant Hare Krishna mantra and recite the Srimad Bhagavatam and absorb yourself continuously in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So he went back to Benares and he performed these services, but he still had the desire within his heart. He wanted to go and spend time again with the Lord in Puri, so eventually got the opportunity to go back there. And he performed the same services to the Lord, and then after some time, 8 months, the Lord said, now you should go to Vrindavan and you should take shelter under the auspices of and guidance of Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, and there render service to them and constantly chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and recite the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in this way he set out for Vrindavan, and he went there and he took darshan of Rupa Goswami's deity Govinda Dev, and under the guidance of Rupa Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami had some of his disciples build the present Govinda temple, Govinda Dev's temple there, which in the Muslim times under Aurangzeb, who was a very ruthless hater of the Brahmins and the Hindus, he knocked down, how many stories of the Govinda temple was it? Was it 6? Knocked down 7 stories. And because on top of the top story there used to be a light in which Aurangzeb, even from his residence in what's the city called where Aurangzeb lived? What's the city called? The city near Vrindavan, where the Muslim city. Agra, right. So he lived there, had his palace there, which is not, it's quite a distance from Vrindavan, but even from there he could see the light on the top of the Govinda Dev temple. And so he became very antagonistic and desecrated that temple. But now it's been rebuilt in modern times. So this is so then Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, he was famous for his living out the rest of his life for performing many services in Vrindavan, especially his recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, in which every day all the other Goswamis would come and listen to the recitation of the Srimad Bhagavatam for something like 3 or 4 hours every day, or maybe more. And sometimes he and the other great exalted devotees there would swoon in the ecstasy of pure love of Krishna by hearing the nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's like a short synopsis on the life of Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. Now in this next 2 verses, So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he says, I list in this way only a portion of the innumerable devotees of Lord Caitanya. Describe them all fully is not possible. So the associates of Lord Caitanya and the pastimes of the Lord and his followers are unlimited. And they're still happening today. This ISKCON movement is a branch of Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu's tree, Sankirtan tree, in which the Krishna consciousness, Lord Caitanya, his Sankirtan movement, the loud chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, and the preaching of Krishna consciousness and the distribution of the preaching angas in the form of book distribution, Harinam Sankirtan, Prasadam distribution is widely being spread all around the world. And in the next purport, Prabhupada describes how this Krishna consciousness is being spread all around the world. And there may be so many so-called devotees who criticize this ISKCON movement, criticize the preaching. But like Prabhupada said, no, the dogs may bark at the caravan, but the caravan keeps rolling on, it keeps passing. So many people bark and criticize for the preaching of this Krishna consciousness movement. Some people, they think that the devotees are fanatics or sentimentalists, but they do not understand the deep philosophy of Krishna consciousness and how it's the ultimate benefit for all of the entities, to give all of the entities solution to all their problems of life. Prabhupada asked some devotees in Australia one time, what do you say when you distribute my books? And I believe it was Gopinath Acharya sort of humbly said, we say these books are on yoga and meditation. Prabhupada said, you should say these books give solutions to all the problems of all the living entities in this material creation. So many people may criticize, but it's because they don't properly understand the deep philosophy of Krishna consciousness and how it can completely uplift any fallen conditioned soul, even from the depths of Kali Yuga, to an elevated, pure bhakta, pure devotee of the Lord. And we're all affected by the anomalies or the defects of Kali Yuga. Prayanopaya sasabhya kalavasman yogejana. In the Srimad Bhagavatam first canto, it states that in this age of Kali, men have but short lives. They are quarrelsome, lazy, unguided, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. And also in the 12th canto, states that this age of Kali is like an ocean of faults. But there's one great quality, Kirtanadeva Krishna Shah, simply by chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, Mukta Sangha Param Vijet. One can be liberated from all misfortune, all misunderstanding, and promoted to the platform of Krishna Prem, love for Krishna, and with all good qualities, even in this life. Yashasti Bhakti Bhagavati Yakinchana Savai Gunas Tatra Samasate Sara. Unto one who has in unflinching devotion to Krishna, all the good qualities of Krishna and the demigods are manifest in such a person. However, one who does not have love and devotion for Krishna, he has no good qualities because he's always hovering on the platform of the mental platform or the sensual platform. So, on the one hand, we're born in a very regrettable situation in Kali Yuga, no previous training in Krishna consciousness, no previous understanding. Prabhupada said, you have no good qualities, but you have no pious activity, but I've created your pious activity. So, this Krishna consciousness process is directly transported from the spiritual world. Goloka Premadana Hari Nama Sankirtana. This chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is directly transported from Goloka Vrindavan. And Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. This chanting of Hare Krishna is non-different from Krishna. It's absolute. Like if we're thirsty or we're hungry, we can't satisfy our thirst or our hunger just by saying water or food. We have to actually take some water or some prasadam, and then automatically all our senses are satisfied. So this is stated in the 11th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhakti Pareshna Nabhavo Virakti Anyatra Yashak Chika Eka Kala, that devotion to Krishna, transcendental knowledge of Krishna, and detachment from the material world, these three things come automatically with every step we take in devotional service. And the example is given that Tushti Pushti Shud Apayo Nagasham, that when you're hungry, with every bite of prasadam that you take, you feel pleasure, nourishment, and freedom from hunger. So this process is not dry theory, it's practically experienced, that when we apply this process in our life, we follow in the footsteps of the great acharyas like the six Goswamis and all the great teachers in our line down to Srila Prabhupada and his representatives. We follow in their footsteps, Mahajano Yena Katasa Panta. Not that we can imitate these great souls, but we follow in their footsteps, see how they were always engaged in Krishna conscious activity, always chanting, always hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, always rendering menial service, always preaching Krishna consciousness. Then we can experience practically that we're making advancement, that we're becoming purified. So this Krishna consciousness movement is meant to be spread all around the world, to all different countries, all different cities. Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he predicted this, Pritavityachi Yata Nagaradigram. In as many towns and villages as there are on this earth, my holy name will be preached. And we see now this ISKCON movement is spreading. In just a short period of 50 years, America, Europe, Australia, China, Russia, Africa, practically everywhere you go, there's temples and devotees and this preaching activities going on. So this is the real nectar. This is the real ecstasy, the real happiness. If you want to be happy 24 hours a day, you absorb yourself in Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada has given us these programs at the temple, like the morning program, evening program. It's like the sandwich program, right? Like when you have a sandwich, if you have your salad in the middle and you have your pieces of bread on either side and you wrap it up in a wrapper, it can stay together. So the morning program, evening program, service through the day is like the sandwich program. And if you have a strong morning, evening programs and full dedication to your service throughout the day, then you can stay fixed in Krishna consciousness. And this is the goal, to always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna, and always remember Krishna. These are the two most important rules, in which all the other rules hinge on these two rules. So these Srila Prabhupada's created these programs, coming to the temple, attending the programs, hearing the Bhagavatam class, chanting our rounds together, dancing in kirtan, taking prasadam together, going out preaching together, performing services together. It's very important to do these activities, these services, in the association of other devotees. Like, we commonly hear the example, one stick is easily broken. If you try and get a bunch of sticks, you can't break them. So by yourself, you may be in your house thinking, I'm practicing my Krishna consciousness, I don't need to go to the temple. I have my deities, I offer my food, I have prasadam, I have all the books, I do kirtan. How long will you last if you just practice at home? But we need the strength. We should always think that I'm very unqualified, I'm very fallen, I have so many material desires, I have so much greed, anger, lust, envy, so many bad qualities. I need the constant association of the devotees. And that's why we come to the temple regularly. A family that prays together stays together. So, and especially devotees who are, it's maybe difficult for those who are householders. We have so many responsibilities, so many distractions. Wife, kids, house, bills, work, etc. So it may be difficult to get to the temple, but at least we should come even once a week, or maybe we can come every day just for a little bit of the morning program. Because every part of this program is full of unlimited ecstasy and nectar. Even if you can just come for Mangalarti and then you have to leave, or you come for a bit of japa and you leave, or you just come for the class. Like apart from chanting our japa, the Srimad Bhagavatam or hearing the Caitanya and Caritamrita is the most important part of the morning program. If we don't become fixed up in this philosophy, it's very difficult to remain in Krishna consciousness. And, how can we preach this Krishna conscious philosophy if we're not constantly hearing and fixing ourselves up in this understanding of this philosophy? So, of course, all the parts of the temple program are very important. So, as I said, we may be living outside and may not be able to attend the whole program, but we shouldn't have this desire that let me come at least even for 5 minutes. Even I can't make the program, but let me make it in time for prasadam. Because even we experience the prasadam, sitting down with devotees and relishing wonderful prasadam is such a nice activity, so blissful, so purifying. It's so rare that we are here and have this opportunity to take to Krishna consciousness. I mean, Lord Caitanya and Lord Krishna, they only appear once in 1,000 times the 4 cycles, Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali. So only in one Kali Yuga does Lord Krishna appear at the beginning and Lord Caitanya appear later on. Very, very rare. Who are we to be here at this particular time? When just 50 years ago, Srila Prabhupada was here. 500 years ago, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was here. 5,000 years ago, Lord Krishna was here. It's a very short period of time in the eternal scheme of things. So while we have this wonderful opportunity, we should fully take up this mission of Krishna consciousness and absorb ourselves in hearing these wonderful pastimes of the Lord and His wonderful associates, hearing this amazing philosophy. And I try and come every day. It's not easy when you've got so many responsibilities at home, but I try and come every day, even part of the program, and I see that sometimes there's, especially in Japa, there's not so many devotees here, and I'm thinking there should be more devotees here. Like, we have to try and encourage other devotees to come and join in this program, and maybe many devotees are they're caught up in their family life or their work, and they've they don't have much time, or maybe they've sort of forgotten about the importance of coming and joining in these wonderful programs. So we have to try and encourage devotees to for their own sake, and also for us. It's so inspiring to see so many devotees coming and joining in, like performing kirtan together, hearing the class together, doing japa together, dancing in the kirtans. So sometimes we don't see some devotees for a long time, but when we see them, we become like, oh, it's so great to see you, Prabhu, Mataji. I haven't seen you for a long time. It's wonderful to have you here. Please come and join us more often. So we need to encourage each other. Like that famous story that, there was a community of Christians, and at one point, they had a thriving community, but at one point they started criticizing each other, saying, this one's got so many faults, this one's got that fault, this fault. And so so many of their members started leaving, and there was only a few practitioners left in the church, and they were starting to think, well, what did we do wrong? So they thought, let's go and see the local rabbi in the local town. So they went to see the local rabbi, and he said, one of you will be the Messiah. So they came back and they said to each other, well, the rabbi said, one of us will be the Messiah. And they started to think, well, it can't be him, her, they've got so many faults and material desires. And then they started to think, well, hang on, maybe it could be, it definitely can't be me, because I'm full of so many faults. And maybe it could be him or her, because she or he has so much devotion, so much love for God, so much understanding of the philosophy. And because they changed their whole mood, the atmosphere changed, and they were so respectful to each other, then all the old devotees who had left and were not coming anymore started to come around, and they built their thriving community once again. So we have to think like this, that there's hundreds and hundreds of devotees out there that have been in the movement for years, for decades, 30, 40, 50 years, many of them born in the movement, but where are they? There's only a handful of us here, only 12, 15. So we have to try and, not only we should be spreading Krishna consciousness, making new devotees, but also trying to encourage the devotees who have already been devotees for many, many, many years. Prabhupada said, don't make me Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great, he was conquering one country after the other, but every time he'd conquer a new country, he'd lose the country behind him. So Prabhupada said, don't make me Alexander the Great, where you're making new devotees, but you're losing the old ones walking out the back door. So, and there's hundreds of wonderful devotees in this community, and we should think, all of us, whether we're living in the temple here as a brahmachari, brahmacharini, or grihastha, vanaprast, living outside, we should think that, by me coming to the temple and attending this program and being absorbed in Krishna consciousness, I'm setting an example. Even if you're a new devotee, you've been around just 1 or 2 years, you're like setting an example for many others. Even you're setting an example for older devotees. The older devotees may get very inspired and enthused by seeing the young devotees, how happily and ecstatically they're engaging in Krishna consciousness. So we should always think like that, not that we just preach the philosophy very nicely, but we should set a wonderful example as well. Like Sanatana Goswami said about Haridas Thakur, you are the spiritual master of the entire world, because you not only preach Krishna consciousness very nicely, but you also act very nicely in relationship to the holy name. Therefore you're qualified to be the spiritual master of the entire world. And Prabhupada said, action speaks louder than words. We may not be so expert in presenting the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, but acting very nicely in Krishna consciousness is more important. Of course, both things are important, and if we can do both things, that's very, very nice. But yes, sometimes we see some devotees, and we won't give any names, but some devotees who you only see them, and maybe they just come for the festivals, and of course any time they come is good. But in Sydney, I remember we used to call them the Sunday Feast Ecstasy Crew. We just come on Sundays, jump up and down for half an hour in the kirtan, then you wouldn't see them for the whole week again. So we don't want to be like that. So, even some devotees, they come lead kirtan or give a class, and they come for their own class, but they don't seem to come for anybody else's class. So we should not be like this. We should try and come to everyone's class. We should think everyone else is qualified more to give class than me, or lead a kirtan than me, or render service than me. And not that we should think I'm the most fallen. Prabhupada, one devotee said to Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen. Prabhupada said, you're not the most of anything. And another devotee, it was Giriraj Swami, said, Prabhupada, I'm in Maya. So sometimes I feel like I'm in Maya. Prabhupada said, you're always in Maya. So this is our position. We're always in Maya. Where, we are very fallen, but we can't falsely try and be humble and go around stating that, I'm the most fallen. Then we have to admit that we are fallen, but do something about it by actively engaging in Krishna consciousness. And what does that mean? By having strict sadhana, always coming and associating with devotees, performing our sadhana together, and doing whatever service we can, whether it's going out in book distribution, or working on the farm with bullocks, or milking the cows, or cooking the feasts, or cleaning the temple room floors, making the flower garlands, going out in Harinam Sankirtan, Prashadam distribution. So many wonderful activities we have opportunity to perform in Krishna consciousness, Just like in recent months, a few of us were going down to Lismore every week, once or twice, and Mullumbimby and Murwillumbah, and distributing like hundreds of plates of prasadam every time we went out. It was very ecstatic. And then Shyam was coming down with us and doing kirtan. We're doing Harinam Sankirtan. At one point we went door to door, house to house with a shopping trolley full of prasadam containers, and going door to door, and Shyam was doing the Harinam along with the prasadam distribution and knocking on people's doors, and people were so grateful for receiving the wonderful mercy of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada. Just the other week I was in Sydney, and a few devotees here also came down for the Vivid Festival. 3 weeks of ecstatic Harinam. Bhakti Tom was there, dancing like a ecstatic madman in Krishna consciousness. Pratap had to calm him down a bit. So I went for a couple of nights. I took my youngest daughter there. I was pushing her in the pram, and it was ecstatic. There was like 1 million people on the foreshore, and there was 30, 40 devotees for 2 or 3 hours. We were dancing around there. And Jai Shri Mataji and Chamri Mataji, they were wanting to push my daughter in the pram as well, so they gave me a break occasionally so I could dance a bit more. And it was such an ecstatic program, and going to Govindas, taking wonderful prasadam there together. And then one day I went and stayed with a disciple of Caitanya Swami, your godbrother Radhika Prasad in Sydney. He's a householder, and he distributes thousands of books. And his daughter, she's only 12, she goes out and books, and his mother-in-law, who lives with him, she goes out and books. So I went out one day with him, and we did like 3 boxes of books between all of us. And he also prints. He's so fired up. He prints in Australia. He prints one of Hridayananda Maharaj's books and a couple of Mahatma Prabhu's books. And he showed me his garage. He's got thousands of books and boxes there, and all of Srila Prabhupada's books as well. And he sets up stalls and at street festivals, and so many books go out. So wonderful to get the association of these wonderful great souls, and of course any service is wonderful, whether it's going out and preaching or doing so many services here. Just by seeing the wonderful service of many different devotees, we can all become inspired as well, just like seeing the beautiful transcendental deities, Shishi Radha Govardhandare, Shishi Gaunataya, Shishi Krishna Balaram Giri Govardhan, and the way they're daily dressed in such amazing outfits and flower garlands, and worshipped in such amazing ways by so many wonderful pujaris, and all the wonderful prasadam that's cooked on a daily basis by so many wonderful devotees, and the wonderful kirtanias leading wonderful kirtans, and all the farm devotees doing so much wonderful farm services. So enlivening to see all these services rendered by devotees, and just by seeing, or even just by hearing about the services of different devotees, we can become fired up. We can become in ecstasy. Just like in the Caitanya Caritamrita, sometimes some devotees, they didn't get to see Lord Chaitanya or his associates, but they just hear about them performing their pastimes, and they would achieve ecstatic love of Godhead just by hearing about the service rendered by the Lord and his devotees. Okay, so I'll finish there. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Do we have a microphone?
You were talking about how we can get more devotees to come. I was thinking, in our community we have a lot of, second generation, third generation. Is that saying that familiarity breeds contempt? I think it is.
Familiarity breeds contempt, yeah.
And so I noticed that with my children, that they, as much as I try for them not to, take Krishna consciousness for granted, it happens so easily. And so I was wondering if you could give a little bit of advice. Obviously it doesn't happen with everybody. We've got Nanduri, wonderful example.
Yeah, well, just if they're willing to come to the temple, we shouldn't force them. But if they're happy to come, then that's fantastic. And even if they does seem like they're taking it for granted a bit, if they're coming willingly and happily, then they're going to receive so much benefit. And we understand that if they just come for a bit of kirtan or class or prasadam, or they render a little bit of service, they're getting unlimited benefit, and they're purified from more sinful reactions than they could commit in millions of lifetimes. So the benefit is immeasurable. And but sometimes, like I know with my kids, sometimes they want to come and sometimes they don't want to come, right? So if they don't want to come, you can think, okay, well, maybe not today, maybe another day we can all go. So don't force them, and just make it a joyful experience. And maybe you can contact some of their friends to see if their friends are coming, because they always like it if their friends are coming. They always want to know if their friends are here. If their friends are coming, they don't really want to come, right? So that's a good thing to do. Contact their friends first and find out, and then even if they don't attend the program so much, they're running around just playing with each other, then they're still getting the benefit, because they're hearing the kirtan. The classes, kirtan and class are being vibrated outside there, and all of them are happy to take prasad, right? I don't think your kids or any of our kids ever say, I don't want to take prasadam. They're always very eager to take prasadam. And also doing Krishna conscious activities at home. Do some kirtan regularly and some reading, especially they like stories, kids, right? They don't not so much apt to sit and hear philosophy for very long, but stories, like Mahabharata and Krishna book and different stories, and maybe Prabhupada. No, some devotees are reading all the different, like Paramakruna, with his son, he's reading all the different books on Prabhupada by Prabhupada's disciples. And Haridas, his son, is very, he really likes it. And some devotees, I know Lakshmi Vani told me he reads the Mahabharata with his sons. So, and of course, inviting devotees to your house, having programs is very nice. Nice way to engage all the kids. All their friends come over and they can be there for some of the kirtan and maybe some of the class and the prasadam. And that'll create a strong wonderful memory. They remember these wonderful experiences of so many people, sadhus and their friends coming to their house. And trying to engage the kids also in some service is nice if you can, serving out prasadam. Maybe leading a kirtan. Some of the gurukulis we see, they're encouraged to lead kirtan. It's very nice way they can serve. Or helping with a feast, different ways. And a lot of the kids, they like to do these services. And of course, there's so many varieties of ways we can encourage them. Watching different DVDs on Krishna. I know my little daughter and all my kids, when they were little, I want to watch Krishna. Constantly, they want to watch Krishna all the time, little Krishna, or maybe Ram or Hanuman. Does anyone else have anything you want to say? There's a microphone?
Hi. I want to ask a question. It's pretty much on the same topic as what this Mataji's brought up with complacency. What I've noticed in my bhakti career is, in the first few months it's all good, you've got that whole I'm a pure devotee sort of thing, everything's just going to Vrindavan. But for myself, after some time, some old things start to come up, you get complacent, and old habits, old ways of thinking, behaving start to come up. I don't know if anyone else has that same sort of experience with those kinds of things, but what are some practical tips you can give in order to check ourselves and so we don't fall victim to these old ways of acting and behaving?
Taking everything for granted. Yeah, so that's an important point too. We should not just with adult devotees, but also with kids. We can constantly sort of remind them of the importance of different Krishna conscious activities and the benefit and the wonderful benefit of coming and joining in these Krishna conscious activities. So they have to be reminded, all of us have to be reminded, right? Because we're so forgetful. We get so covered over easily, especially we go out there and so many distractions, especially in the household life, the well of household life, right? The deep dark well. In India there's many wells and a lot of them are grassed over so you can't see them and you might fall in, and even though you yell as loud as you can, no one can hear you from outside. But if someone comes and lowers a rope, then you have a chance of getting out. So we have to continuously give that rope to our family and friends who are in the well. We're all in the well to a certain extent because, speaking for myself, I'm not a pure devotee, so we're all still in Maya, still in the well. But if we have that chance to constantly get reminded and inspired by other devotees to grab onto the rope and pull yourself up, even though there's like rats snoring at the rope or there's some bees hovering at the top or there's a tiger at the top, at least we have a chance if we grab onto the rope. So we have to continuously, remind others and even our kids of the wonderful ecstasy and happiness and benefit of coming to the temple or doing some service or joining into the programs. So I think we'll have to finish there. Jai, Shri Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhatta Raghunath Goswami ki, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari.